So, the best training split ever? Question mark. It's a good question. Full body training. Why could this be the best training ever? So I talked about it in the previous video that when we think about the opportunities that we create for hypertrophy, that when we train in an every other day fashion, we create a stimulus that we recover from and we grow, that we then set up 7 opportunities for growth over a 2-week period. I've said that because 3.5 opportunities for growth a week just sounds weird. So 7 opportunities over a 2-week period. So when we actually equate that to a year, I did work it out this time, it's 182 opportunities for growth. If we train a split body part, and we only train once a week, that's 52 opportunities for growth. At the end of a year, if an individual has done something 182 times versus 52 times, I believe the difference is going to be stark. I think that's an appropriate description. I think it's going to be very apparent. And for that reason, and that reason alone, I want this to be a training split that you consider and try. Because if you do, I can guarantee that in 6 months' time, and you stick to it in the kind of the manner that we're going to outline in this video, you will have made, especially if you've been kind of fluffing around with your splits and whatnot, you will have made more progress in 6 months than you probably have done in the last 2 years. That I can assure you. And that's been consistent feedback from those that have kind of been a little bit lost with their programming. When they've kind of got stuck into the full body idea, they've then stepped forward just unbelievably. So that's what I really want you guys to do, because it hurts my soul when I see people a little bit lost and confused because they're potentially following the wrong advice, in the sense that they're looking at what pros do and they're trying to emulate that, whereas it's just not applicable whatsoever, because you're leaving so much progress on the table. We want 182 opportunities of growth a year. So how do we make that happen? Through lots of trial and error, testing out different volumes and combinations of rep ranges, I settled on just the idea that for each exercise that we do, we only do 1 working set. That is it, which is going to seem really low. However, what's important that you guys do in this process is that you logbook your training. So the set that you take to failure, you write down the exact weight and reps that you do. When you come to repeat that exercise, prior to the session, I want you to look at your logbook and look at the weight and the reps that you did. And before you go into this session, you're going to know that you're going to beat that in some fashion. You're either going to add a very small amount of weight, or you're going to increase it by a rep, or you're going to do both. And in the beginning phases, when I say beginning, for the first 6 months of this, that's going to occur on session without fail, provided that you focus on your recovery needs appropriately. And we touched on that a little bit before as well. So that's just being consistent with your sleep, consistent with your hydration, consistent with your minerals, managing your stress levels and eating appropriately. Focus on those things, logbook your sessions, and progress your lifts. If you can do that, the progress is going to be unbelievable, and you're going to not waste any time, to the point where in 6 months everyone is going to be saying to you, holy shit, what are you doing? And they're going to want to then jump on board with what you're doing. So how do we set this up? Grab a pen and paper as well, by the way, guys. So day 1, we're going to do heavy upper body and light lower body. Now the reason why I favor that approach is that as we move from session to session, undulating the rep ranges in that way, so heavy and light, I feel like creates a greater amount of longevity for progression, because we're not just sticking in one rep range all the time. And I believe that undulation of rep ranges just allows you to then stretch out the effectiveness of this training program. So we're going to do heavy upper body, light lower body. How does that look? We're going to pick one chest focused movement. We're then going to pick one shoulder focused movement, one tricep focused movement. These are all compound movements, by the way. We're then going to pick one lat biased movement, one upper back thickness focused movement, and then we're going to add one side delt isolation movement, which is one that I pull in and out of this split, and I'll explain why, but for now it's in. And then one bicep isolation and one tricep isolation. After that, we then do one hamstring curl, one quad compound, one leg extension or quad isolation, and then 1 calf raise. That is it. It's going to seem like extremely low volume. And for a lot of you, you're not going to understand how the volume can be so low. But I'm telling you now that when you aren't advanced, you do not need much stimulus to make progress. All you need to do is consistently expose yourself to new loads at new reps. It doesn't have to be multiple sets. This is key. The current literature about minimum volume requirements per week for training is absolute junk. It is useless literature. And please take this from someone that isn't just a meathead, because yes, I'm a meathead, but equally, I have an undergrad in sports science from the best sports science university in the world, which is Loughborough University, and I have a master's in exercise physiology from Manchester University. So I understand the science as well. And I'm telling you now that the volume literature is garbage. And the reason for that is because it entirely disregards the idea of someone that trains hard consistently. Because if you are able to consistently progress your logbook over a period of time, you're going to expose yourself to loads that you have never done before, at reps you've never done before, consistently over a 6-month, year period. And every single time you expose your body to that novel stimulus, there will be an equal opposite reaction in regards to muscular hypertrophy. That is fact. So, with that in mind, we don't need multiple sets. All we need is a novel stimulus. So please understand that the novel stimulus is key. How do we hold ourselves accountable to the novel stimulus? We logbook our gym sessions. And then before going into that gym session, we look at our logbook and we say to ourselves, that's what I got to do today. And that's the hard part, because over 6 months, you're all of a sudden going to look at your logbook and you're going to think, fuck. But the moment you do that, yes, good. I loved that moment because I knew that I am then getting into sessions that really change my physique. Because I could look at it and think, holy shit, I've got to do that leg press today, and I've got to do that chest press today, and that shoulder press. Holy smokes, this session is going to be hard. And I assure you that when you are in that spot, these sessions are going to be so physically demanding that you're not going to want to do more than 1 set per body part. Now, the important thing to focus on before we get into more specifics of the session is the standardization aspect of your logbooking. So yes, we're focusing on a new weight for new reps, but that cannot ever be at the sake of altering your form. Again, I can't stress that enough, guys. We aren't just trying to increase our logbook for the sake of being able to write a new number in it. What we're trying to create is a constant novel stimulus. So that means that the weight on the bar creates a new internal stimulus. So the external stimulus creates a new internal stimulus. They have to constantly equate, which means there can never be an altering of your form, which means standardization is key. So between session to session, and essentially rep to rep, every single one must look the same. And you must hold yourself accountable to that. It is not a win in terms of your logbook if you alter your form. Let me repeat that. It is not a win. You have not successfully nailed that training session if you come away from altering your form. A win is 1 more rep or a slight increase in weight, even if it's just a 0.5 kg, 1 pound increase, with standardized form, job done, great set, tick it off, on to the next. How does the training split look? We're going to run through it quickly, through pieces that we have in the gym. So for my chest movement, I would pick a prime incline. For my shoulder movement, I would pick a high incline Smith or a high incline dumbbell press. For my tricep movement, I would pick a dip or a narrow grip Smith press. For my shoulder isolation movement, I would pick a cable lateral raise. Then for my tricep isolation, I'd pick a single armed tricep pushdown. And then for my bicep isolation, I'd pick a cable curl. Then for my leg work, I'd pick a seated hamstring curl. For my quad compound, I'd pick a leg press. Then I would pick a leg extension for my quad isolation. And then I'd finish with the calf raise, a standing calf raise. After that, I would then pick a cable ab crunch. So jot all those down. The upper body work, all in the 6 to 10 rep range. The arm stuff, you can increase the rep range on that slightly. Maybe we could just go 8 to 12. We don't need to be doing 6 rep arm work, just from an elbow joint health perspective. And then for the leg work, the lower body work, I want you to focus on working in a 15 to 25 rep range. Every aspect is that. So we brush out our upper body work and then we move on to our lower body work. Warming up is important, that your body is extremely ready to do the work, but you do not waste energy. So how does that look? Let's say that for our 10 rep chest press movement, I can do, just for ease, I can do 5 plates aside on the movement. So I'm gonna hop on and I'm gonna do just 1 plate for 10, 12 reps. I'm then gonna do, depending on how I feel that day, let's say this is a day where I feel a bit tight and a bit at risk. And then I'm gonna do 1.5 plates. I'm then gonna jump by half a plate. And I'm gonna do 6 or 7 reps. Then I'm gonna do 2 plates, and I'm gonna do 4 or 5 reps. Then I'm gonna do 2.5 plates, and do 2 or 3 reps. Then I'm gonna do 3 plates. And again, just 2 or 3 reps. 3.5 plates, 1 or 2 reps. 4 plates, 1 or 2 reps. 4.5 plates, 1 rep. I have warmed up now lots. The total amount of warm-up repetitions I've done is a lot, more than enough, but I have wasted absolutely no energy. And I've taken 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and probably 90 seconds between warm-up sets. Don't rush that part, because you're gonna create too much fatigue. Then 5 plates, 10 reps to failure. That's my first work set. Now, because I've done all of that pressing movement, I'm now extremely warm for what would be my high incline Smith press. So the amount of warm-ups I need to do on that are now a lot less. So let's say for my high incline Smith, I do 3 plates aside for 10 reps. Again, I would do 1 plate, and I would probably just do 3 or 4 reps. I would then go straight to 2 plates, and I'd just do 1 or 2 reps. And then I'd probably then just do 2.5 plates, and I'd just do a rep. So I've only done 3 warm-ups on that one. I'm now ready to work again. Now we move on to the dip. For the dip, I might only need 2 warm-up sets, because again, everything I've done so far has fully prepared me that I then don't need to waste much time or energy. So let's say for my dip, I'm gonna dip 2 plates hanging off me for the chain with the belt for 10 reps. I'm gonna do body weight for just 3 or 4 reps and be like, yeah, everything feels great because I've done a ton of warm up, I've done a couple of sets to failure, I'm ready to rock. I'm then just gonna do a plate for, again, just 1 or 2 reps. Yeah, everything feels good, I'm in the groove, let's work. So I've only done 2 warm-ups for that one. When it comes into the lateral, I probably only do 1 warm-up set. I probably literally just do 3 or 4 reps on maybe 1 or 2 pins down from what I'm about to work on. And also the same for the tricep and the bicep movements. Like again, it would just be 1 or 2 warm-up sets. For the back work, I'm probably gonna start again with my warm-ups. Because yes, I'm very well, I haven't then specifically contracted those muscles. So for the lat focused one, I'm probably gonna do the same amount of warm-ups as I did for my chest move. I'm probably gonna do maybe 5 or 6 warm-ups and just creeping up as I go. But then for my back thickness, I'm probably only gonna do 2 or 3 warm-ups because it feels very good and I'm ready to rock. So just bear that in mind with your warm-ups. So again, just to recap how that upper body day looks. So we're going chest move, shoulder move, tricep move, lateral move. Then where you put your arm work is gonna be a bit person dependent. But I quite often like then going lat move, back thickness move, then coming back to a tricep move, then a bicep move, and then moving on to my leg work. That's kind of one of my favorite ways to do things. But you can equally put your triceps before your back work and your biceps at the end before going to your lower body work. And then when you do the next training session, I want you to flip the order which you do things, in that you will now do heavy lower body and light upper body. So the rep ranges are 6 to 10, we can say, for the heavy work, and we can do 15 to 25 for the light work. So we're going to do heavy upper, light lower on a Monday, and then we're going to do heavy lower, light upper on a Wednesday. And then on the Friday, we're going to flip it back round again. I want you to pick entirely different exercises on the Wednesday that you did to the Monday. And then again, I want you to pick entirely different exercises again on the next session that starts heavy upper, light lower, and then again entirely different. So we've got 4 entirely different training sessions. So we've got full body A, B, C, and D, or 1, 2, 3, and 4, whatever you want to call it. Once you've completed all 4 sessions, that's when you go back to session 1 and you beat your logbook numbers for that exercise. I guarantee, without a shadow of a doubt, that you will progress your lifts. If for some reason you don't, efficiently focused on the things that influence recovery. If you don't focus on those things, even with the most optimal, thought out training, like we've kind of just gone through, you will not make progress. They are very, very focused on those. As you get further along, your ability to make progress narrows, which means then your flexibility in terms of errors with your recovery factors becomes even narrower again. As a beginner, you could probably eat pretty poorly, sleep fairly averagely, etc., and still make progress. But for some of you, you will need to be accurate from the word go. Again, there is individuality to that. Some people are freaks and are just going to make progress because they're naturally more athletic, they're naturally more robust. For others, you're going to have to be very accurate. Suck it up, that's just the way it is. Now, I went back through some of my old content when I made these videos previously, and I just kind of skimmed over some of the questions that I was consistently asked, and I thought I'd cover some of those now. One of the common questions was, how do I know if this split is suitable for me? In 2016, I did a variation of this training, and it was under Dr. Scott Stevenson's coaching, and it was called fortitude training, but it is full body training. I trained the full body 3 times a week. And that was a very advanced stage of my own personal bodybuilding. I competed that year at 248 pounds. We can put a picture here or here, I don't know, at some point for that. And there's 248 pounds at 5'6". So my level of development there was pretty high. I was able to make progress the whole way through that year. That was a 6-month prep on that training split. It worked perfectly. I wanted to go back to that split to then further allow myself to understand that training despite being an advanced trainee. I didn't care whether it was right or wrong going into it. I just wanted to learn. And it was a really important year for me. And I learned a lot about training by exposing myself to that. I've trained full body before, but when I was 16, 17, when I was playing rugby, and it was under the supervision of strength and conditioning coaches, because that was just the most efficient way for us to train. We trained full body or we trained upper lower splits. So I was very used to that way of training. But I was also extremely small when I was 16, 17. And the specificity wasn't for building muscle, it was for just increasing strength and explosive power. But nonetheless, I thought, if I'm going to learn, really learn, I'm going to full body training, because if I don't expose myself to it at this level of musculature, how can I then do these content videos? If I didn't do that training for 6 months, how could I then talk about it with any real understanding? And that, I believe, if you take your training seriously, and if you're a coach, is a very, very reason to consider this split. Where I would kind of potentially rule some guys out, because you don't have to be as obsessed with the learning aspect as I was. For me, the learning part was again, it was everything to me, because I just wanted to understand every component of training as I possibly could, because I didn't want there to be any gaps where I couldn't answer a question that was training related. So for a very long time, it was just a pure obsession of mine. For some of you, you might not have that level of obsession, which is totally fine. And if you already have a really advanced level of musculature and you need quite a lot of detailed, focused work, this is where I wouldn't advise trying to revisit that full body training. It's just not going to be necessary for you, and in that instance you will regress. But for that, I'm talking really, really high level guys and girls, ones that are already pros, that already understand their own training needs. That's the difference. For a lot of you watching this, you aren't going to understand your own training needs. If you even have the question in your head, I don't know what the best way for me to train is, I'm telling you now that you need to do this split, okay?